What is an emotion? Emotions are born where the body and the mind they meet. An emotion is the body's response to a thought, your body's reaction to your mind. It's a response seen through the filter of the mind. And the mind, it interprets everything through these mental concepts of good or bad or right or wrong, etc. Emotions are just objects. Most people, they struggle to understand this. The more that you believe your thoughts, what you like, what you don't like, everything that you judge, your interpretation of the world, the stronger your emotions will be. So in specific moments, your body will instinctively react to a challenge or a threat. When your body reacts instinctively, it can be considered to be a primordial form of emotion, like fear or anger or pleasure. A primordial emotion or instinctive response is not the same thing as the emotions that we're going to be talking about here. The important difference between this instinctive primordial response and an emotion is this. An instinctive response is the body's direct response to something external. This happens in the moment and it's instinctive. An emotion, on the other hand, is the body's response to a thought. The external situation is first processed through the mind and an emotion is created. Now, many people, they confuse the two, thinking that emotions are instinctive responses, when in fact, they've actually first been unconsciously processed through the mind. Because this processing happens in milliseconds and without your awareness, so you don't even know that you're thinking about it. Whatever thoughts you have in the moment will have emotions attached to them. And some of these emotions, they'll feel good, like being happy and joyful and grateful, while some won't feel as good. They'll feel more negative and uncomfortable. And this is completely normal. But most people, they don't like the negative, heavy emotions, and they instead resist them. The emotion, the energy, then gets stuck in the system, and then it gets stored as pain that can be activated at any moment. So an example of this, of how pain can be activated inside of you, is you're sitting there and watching a movie. Maybe you have stored pain in the form of loneliness. And as you're sitting there enjoying this movie, the two characters, they fall in love. And suddenly you feel this pang of loneliness in your heart. Since you're alone, there's no one there to give you attention. This emotion, it starts to take over and it creates this energy inside of you. It's interesting, right? Just a few minutes ago, you were totally fine. So the fact that this emotion can wake up inside of you so suddenly, based on something that you've seen in a movie that doesn't relate to you, shows that there is old, stored pain in your heart related to that topic. And when it's activated by something, in this case, the scene in the movie, instead of letting it go in the moment, you start thinking about how lonely you feel and you get caught up in this wave of thoughts and emotions, right? You get completely taken over by it. When you get caught up in the emotion and you feel like it is you, the emotion has become ego. So when you can't pull yourself out of it and see it objectively, for example, my heart is hurting in this moment, but you're just completely taken over by it, the mind begins to identify with these external things. It becomes the I. That's how you know that your emotions are ego generated emotions. So, true emotions, which are deeper, are not really emotions at all. Rather, they're these states of being. See if you can feel the difference between the two types that I'm talking about here. The emotions that we experience most often, they actually exist within this realm of opposites. So love, which is more passion than real love, and then hate, for example. States of being, on the other hand, they can be much more subtle and vague, but they don't actually have an opposite. They just radiate from within you, and there's this groundedness and there's this truth to them. They're not full of this frantic energy. They're not loud and pushy. They just emanate and radiate out. True love, joy, peace. They are your true being's states when you are relaxed and when you feel safe. So it's important that we distinguish between these feel-good emotions that are actually created by our ego and those deeper emotions that radiate from your natural state of being when you are feeling safe and relaxed. These feel-good emotions, they always carry an opposite, which means that where there's a high, there's always a low that will follow. And this is the roller coaster of up and down that most people are on. So ego-generated emotions, they're dependent on the mind and how the mind interprets the external world. The external world, which is life, is unstable. It can change at any moment. What this means is that your emotional world, your inner world, is at the mercy and controlled by these very delicate, very unstable factors. When you buy into your ego and those ego generated emotions, no wonder that our lives are so filled with drama and pain and suffering. The deeper the emotions are rooted in your being, they won't fluctuate. They won't be labeled as positive or negative. They have no opposite. They just are. There's no risk of suffering when you are deeply connected to and rooted in your beingness. So those feel good, positive emotions, they have their opposite, and these we tend to classify as negative emotions. So a negative emotion is an emotion that is toxic to the body and it interferes with the balance and the healthy functioning. So sadness, resentment, anger, hatred, anxiety, fear, dislike, envy, jealousy, they all affect the energy in your body. There's a term that can be used to sum up all of these negative emotions: unhappiness. Most human bodies are experiencing a lot of stress and a lot of strain, not because it's threatened by something external, but actually from within, from the mind. We hold on to these negative emotions, our unhappiness, and we keep this energy circling, looping inside of us, causing ourselves harm, and also those who we come into contact with, the world around us. So although the body is very intelligent, it can't actually tell the difference between an actual situation and a thought. The body therefore reacts to every thought as if it were reality, right? That's what happens. The voice in your head tells a story that your body believes, and then it reacts to it. Those reactions are your emotions. The emotions then in turn, they feed the energy back to the thoughts that created the emotion in the first place. So you think a thought, you believe that thought, that creates an emotion, which creates another thought, and so on, right? This is a vicious circle. We just cycle around.